Hello. Alright. We should be live. Hello and welcome to Bug Free Productions. And so if you find any of the videos helpful, remember to like, subscribe, and comment any ideas or questions you have down in the comments. And then don't forget to chill. We're on YouTube Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. and then Saturday at 10 a.m. These guys are usually code or tool skills, and then Saturday we're usually talking about arts. Remember to drop in. If the music hasn't set the tone, I'm your very sleepy developer tonight, so we'll be picking up back where we were with Brick Breaker and going through some of this stuff today. We should finish up what was started in the previous video for Brick Breaker. And we'll be finishing that off hopefully a little bit early, since the other one ran a bit long, I think. With that, I think we'll just get right back in it. So you'll notice there's a bit of a different setup today. I flipped over to a new so we got a bit more power running today. So before we did the game manager, we did the canvas navigation, we did the ball script. I'm gonna start by pulling up the ball scripts. I'm just gonna, there's one thing I wanted to note that we did here that isn't actually very necessary, I don't think. Limiting the ball velocity, very necessary. One thing I think we could have done is replace this with the Z. So if we set the Z equal to, yeah, this, which there's a better way to do that, and I show that in some of my other videos, but we'll just be looking at this right now. This doesn't this is good. We don't actually care about the velocity, because what we can do is actually, if we flip back to Unity, okay, there's a thing in here where we can go to our, it looks like our scenes didn't open. I actually had to clone this to my laptop, so my scenes and stuff are open. So start menu, and then scene. If the scene was in stage 1. Stage 1. If we go to the ball, player ball, and player ball, one of the downsides is this is a smaller screen that I'm working on. I can't quite read it as well either. Maybe we'll switch it again for the next one over to my 2K monitor or something. Which is also still small. It's not big size-wise, but anyway. I'm gonna have to go to the ball, not ball script. Need the rigid body, and back where we change the constraints to freeze the rotation, we actually freeze it via position, so it's world position, so we just freeze it on the Z. And then we don't have to worry about setting any velocity to 0, since now it's free to rotate, but it can never move its Z position. So that should work. So if we hit play and do that, it should run for a while without falling off. We can just let that sit while we talk about the other stuff here. So the next thing we'll be doing is getting ready for paddles and getting bricks that can be broken by the ball, which will just shorthand for that. I think we'll just give it a number of hits and then tell it to send points to the manager. So we're about 5 minutes in now, so let's go ahead and get going. Alright, so that doesn't fall off because it's pinned on the Z. So that's kind of nice. Pinned in its Z position, which is world related, not object related. And even if it was object related, it'd be in place on the in terms of world. It's confusing, but we'll leave it all in world space as much as I can for this. So next thing would be to create player paddle. So you can right click in the hierarchy, create empty. No. I'm just going to create a rectangle, which we've already done before. So right click 3D object and do a cube. And I'm going to go ahead on the Z scale and give it no change because it's actually on the X scale. Or is it on the Y scale? Y would be, so it's X. What do we want? 2? 4? 3? That's good enough to play around with for a little while. And let's rename it. It's player cube. Oops. What was... Okay. I didn't remember that shortcut. Control P apparently starts the game, so... Game's a little small here. Maybe I'll... Huh. Window... Window General Game. Want that one. I don't like that it's there. I'll put it back here. Just have to switch to scene now instead for every once in a while. Okay, so let's look at this guy. Cube. Simple cube, little cube guy. And then we're back out and we have a cube. We're gonna call him player handle. So in the inspector, go for player paddle. Player paddle, and for player paddle, we need a... What do we want to do? It depends if we want to do straight transform property or we want to do physics. I still prefer physics. I think... Okay. If we add a rigid body, we need to make it kinematic. So add component, rigid body, kinematic. Is kinematic. So this one, unless it's told to move, won't move. Do we want to apply transform? I'm not sure. We'll try physics. I'm not sure if physics will work. But we can definitely try it. So open that back up. I need to go to materials, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn that music off, just for now. Okay. We're gonna go ahead and move on to probably assets, and then we go, before we go scripts, I'm gonna create a folder for input. So create folder, player input. And why do we do that? Because we need to go and right click and create some player, what is it? Input actions. So we create a new input actions thing. Let's call this, we'll just call it something really simple. YER, player, PLAYER, player paddle, and should have called that input or something, but whatever. And then double click that and it'll open a new pop-up. And where can I put that? We'll just put that in here because we won't be working in the scene and the input at the same time. So the first thing you want to do is add an action map. Call this paddle app action map. The idea is in the script you'd be able to change between action maps via state machine or something else that you make. We're just going to keep it really simple for this one. And we're going to delete the existing binding for action, and we're going to create a new action. And we're going to call this move paddle. Then before we get too far, now that we have an action that we named, we want to go up here and check this save asset box. So now it'll autosave, and if we didn't check that box, it might not even save it the first time. So we'd go back and we'd reference an object and it has no saved information or bindings. So under my paddle, you can change a couple things. I like to change it in the binding if I can. But in move paddle, it looks like there's one thing we have to change here yet. We need the button. We don't need to be we need it not to be a button type. So action type, there's value, button, and pass through. Value is a value, button provides button info. So like if you were pressing buttons and getting that kind of information from it. So WSD. But I prefer pass through. That's just because I like to pass the context directly in, and once you learn that, then you can do more complex things later. So it's a good thing to get used to using that. Control type, button's fine. But I will delete this binding underneath the action, and I'll add a right click. Okay, do have audio. Perfect. We'll add a right click, and we'll need to get I need to modifier. So pass through button. We need to change that because it'll pass through a button control type, which was not what we needed. We need a vector 3, so we get a vector 3, then we can right click, and now we get the option I wanted, which is add up, down, left, right, forward, backward composite. So this will give us a vector 2, right, left, up, down. And if we're doing that, we want to go to up and go path. So we want to, for up, we want our path to be a, wasn't there a listen option? Guess not. So this is going to be, this would be W, W keyboard, then down. That's not working, come on. S keyboard. I could have sworn there used to be a, what's left? Left is going to be A, so A keyboard. And then right is D keyboard. Actually, let's just delete that and delete that. Was that the right one then? Oh, this is a 3D vector. That's not what I want. I had vector 3 selected. I wanted vector 2 selected. Yep, just vector 2 pass through. There we go. Now we can do the up, down, left, right composite, and then we do the same thing. Yep, there we go. I misclicked when I was clicking through, so then we can go through here a little faster. Since we already know where all the objects are. A keyboard, and then we go D keyboard. There we are, that's that one. And so now what we have to do is we need to go to our player paddle, and that's a little small. We'll go to our scene so we can see our paddle object, and we'll scroll down a little bit. If I can have a little more space, that'd be cool. So I want to add a component to my paddle object. So paddle, add component, and then I think it's player input, because input manager is for split screen multiplayer. And we want our actions to choose from that player paddle we had. So I just use this little radial and go in here. I don't do that for anything that could have too many options to scroll through. And then we go behavior, and we want it to invoke Unity events. So by invoking Unity events, that looks fine there. We can invoke events via Unity using paddle. So we defined paddle action in the action map. So we can get on the input, we can get the ball script. What can we get? We can pull in an object here. So what we'll use that from is the same object it's on, player paddle, and we don't have a function for it just yet. That's because we need to go ahead and create the player paddle script, and that's how we'll control how our paddle moves around for the player. So let's go ahead and head down to the scripts folder, so assets, scripts, and we don't have that many scripts to choose from, and we want the a new script, so right click create, C# scripts, and we'll call this player PlayerPaddle. Player paddle move, that's fine. Player paddle's fine. And in player paddle, so if you double click that script, it'll throw you into the VLC. Nah, why do I keep wanting to say VLC? It's because when I was doing video work, it was all VLC all the time. And now that I'm coding, it is Visual Studio. It's VS. Yep, so don't forget your name, date, and namespace if you want them. Date would be a good one. I'm just gonna go a little fast here. So we have player paddle behavior. So I like to start with, as discussed in the other video, bars. Methods. I don't think we'll use any accessors for this class. ACC accessors. It's probably misspelled, but I just spell phonetically-ish when I'm doing comments sometimes. I don't want to look up every word. And there's always the rename function if you mislabel something. So player paddle mono behavior. So what variable are we gonna have? We're probably gonna have a let's do a game object. So protected game object, protected game object, player. Let's call it paddle go, padd, paddle go, and we want to be able to set that in the inspector because I don't want to look for it. Well, oh, if we're doing that, I don't actually even need this reference. Yep, that's right. So let's start with the methods then, I guess. Our method's going to be move. We need, so method is going to be public because it needs to be invocable in Unity, and public invocable. So public void because we don't want to return anything, and then it's going to be the name of our method, which is move paddle. Move paddle, which has parameters of, and here's where we got to go up. So there's one using statement that we'll need because we're going to be using an input action.context. So we need to be using Unity. No, that's not the command. Unity, just type ENGINE engine dot input system, and then this one is input action dot callback context. So this passes in the context of the input action, which gives you access to a couple things. We're not really going to use a IPC, that works fine, or a context, so a con. And then we open a line. So what does this context have? This context, for example, one of the things is value. So we're going to create a variable out here to hold a vector 3. Vector 3 PROT protected vector 3. And this is going to be a move direction, so a mov dir. Sure, establish it at 0. That's fine. And then move paddle input action callback context. Then we want to set a move direction is equal to, and we don't want to say, because it's x, y, z, so you can't set it equal to the vector 2, because if you set a vector 2 equal to a vector 3, it fills in the x into the x slot and the z into the y into the y slot, which leaves the z empty, and your y is the up down in 3D, not the z. So we need to go ahead and fix that. So it's going to be, because we want to move along, we don't really want to move along y at all, so we're only going to read in its, so we're going to set the move direction to be held, and then we're just going to access it in a separate one to actually move it. So let's go change that to move input, and this move direction is going to equal acon dot read value. So there's that one. And so this should be this would be a vector. Let's delete this part and make a vector 2. Vector 2, just call it AV2, which is equal to dot read value. And I think it needs a type of Vector 2, yep. So read value, you have to know what type of value you're going to be reading in, and then you have to use the appropriate type. Otherwise, you'll get errors. So we're just storing that vector2 in a AV2 and that. And then we're just going to go and access line by line. So we're going to go a move direction dot x is equal to av2 dot x, which is true. And oh, triple click doesn't highlight the line in this program. It's going to be, that's going to be a y. And which means we could just set it equal because x will end up in the same spot, and we're only going to use the x. So we can do this. For most games, you'd probably do on the z. So let's just do that for practice. So we set the z is equal to y because the AV2 doesn't have a z-axis, it's a vector 2. So we have x, y, and y mapping to z. So that would be your forward, backward. So this maps out to a vector 3, and then your y will remain 0, so it'll never move up. Could change that, of course, but and this is where you would do that, but we're not going to do that right now. I used regions and stuff before, but I'm just going to kind of go through this one because it's a very small class right now. Might pull in a comment right here where I say take input. From action, and then here we're actually going to move the player. Paddle. I'm probably going to misspell paddle a lot. It's not a word I use often. So then this is going to be public move paddle. So void it auto-completed without me thinking about it. Move paddle, open up a line, and then what we want to do here is essentially move the paddle across the screen left to right, or left and right. And for that, like the ball, we're going to need a move speed. So we're going to need a protected float. That is a move speed. Yeah. Mov speed, which is equal to 1f by default. And a serialized field protective float move speed. One thing that bugs me about Windows 11 is how many different animated cards there are. And then inside the same line, I'm also going to go comma, range, and inside range, we're going to have a range of, what is it? I need 1, 2, let's say 20. I don't want it moving too many units fast. We'll see how that goes. So then read value, and then we should probably create a max speed for this as well. So max speed. And why do I do that? Because I need to move at a certain speed and I want to make sure it never exceeds a certain speed. So move not being called by input, because we don't know what frame input will actually occur on. What we do here is just set what the value will be run at when we go into our normal methods. Normal methods being our, if we're using force, fixed update. So fixed update. And then we're going to want to move the paddle. If we need to pass in any parameters, we would do that there. The reason we use fixed update is you always use fixed update for any time you're messing with a physics system, so that it's not happening on a non-physics frame, which can cause issues. And then we go move paddle. So move paddle would have a add force, so it's going to be game objects. And the reason I haven't gotten the rigid body like in the last time is because I'm not certain that the we don't need this game object. Just get component of type rigid body, and we'll get rigid body of this object, and we will add the force of a vector. So here's where the move direction comes in, right? We don't want the Y or Z input, right? We just stored it for the heck of it, just in case we need to go back and get it later. But what do we need then? We still need a vector 3 here, but we can create one. So we're creating a new struct, vector 3, and its values are going to be, so we only want the x, so it's going to be the move movdir dot x comma 0 comma 0, because we don't want any x or y input. And again, we could have just done that here. We could just comment out this line altogether even, because it's set to 0. So we comment out this one, and then just use move direction, which I might actually do. A move direction. Oh, I named it a move direction. That was not great. That's usually just for. Okay, 1 second. How do I? There we go. Or never mind, those are lost now. Let's just keep going. We have a move speed, move direction. I'm gonna left click, right click, rename it, and just move this to move direction so that it looks nice. And since we don't set the Y, we can just throw it directly in there. So now it only moves along the x-axis with a force, and we want to make sure to apply our force mode just to make sure it's using the right one. So force mode dot force is the one I like. And how often do we want? We don't want move paddle to move if it's moving faster than what it should be. So we want to use an if statement. If our move movedir is equal to not equal to is greater than max speed, and we should actually make this dot magnitude being the total unit in direction that it's moving. For the most part, so it's how fast it's moving. So if its speed is faster than max speed, and this should actually be a different range, which let's say 10 to 29, and let's default this to 25. Then save that. Because it's the maximum, so you don't want it to exceed that much speed. And 10's usually a pretty reasonable number, speed of 10. So if that is true, so if it indeed the magnitude of the direction is greater than the max speed, then we don't do anything. So we just kind of return, and then else. And I still like to open more lines than I need to, but I'm going to get the component and add the force. So let's see how this does with a kinematic rigid body. Might not work. So in the case it doesn't work, we simply change this to transform, and then it'll be fine. Because transform for sure works. And then player paddle. So let's add the component player paddle. Player paddle. And let's go to player input and open our events again, to the paddle, to the function of player input, and player input, not player input, player paddle, and we want to select that public method we made, which is move input should be. Move input up here. Because it has a callback context that it uses, so it puts it above this line, which is nice. Device lost. Yeah. Not something we need to worry about right now. But it does offer all these things for you to change how your controls re-enable, if your device is lost, regained, or just changed. So we need a Unity invoke events. And now that that plays, that'll set that. can adjust our speed, and you notice these are in bars because they have range. So that little range key affects the editor as well. So move speed, I'm probably going to throw it up to like, I'm just going to type in here because I don't like, if I was tweaking generally, I might go range to range, but that's fine. So once player paddle's in here, we should be able to hit play and see what happens. Ah, yes, I did remember right. So a kinematic body does not want to move. It still has a rigid body, and it interacts in the same way with registering collisions. It just doesn't really want you to move it using physics. So we're not going to do the physics one, I guess. What we're going to end up doing, I guess, is doing the transform. So we're going to, once again, delete more code, and we're going to use the transform property, which is kind of fun because it doesn't require me to use any accessing. So game object is essentially what this component's on. Transform is the transform of the game object that we are on, which is kind of interesting. So if we go transform dot, I think it's translate is still usable. Transform dot translate. Then we can go here and we can see vector3 transform translation moves with intensity using a vector3. So we're going to go, that's going to be move direction. So move direction, that's not what I wanted, that's something else. Move dir. So that, and then we'll just multiply it by our speed. That's mov speed. So if it's mov speed, so which also means that our max speed doesn't matter. So we can comment that out and save it up. Now why doesn't max speed matter anymore? Because we can't exceed it because we're using a translate function to move the paddle around. So this max speed was used for a check that no longer is necessary. And which means this if check is no longer necessary, which means this isn't necessary. That's not necessary. So we can just move it there. If something's tabbed over too far, you can always go, I think, Shift Tab. Shift Tab works pretty well too. I'm just going to delete a line. Clean that up. So that's how you move it using a kinematic body. I could have done some freezing and locking and whatnot, but kinematic works a lot smoother this way. So let's save that up and see how that works. Okay, I'm gonna just drag that off screen. It's moving way too fast because I have it set at 10, likely. Oh yeah. It's at 10, and there's one more thing we need in here. So we need move direction by move speed. This is pretty much a normalized factor 3 multiplied by float. That is how fast it's supposed to move. And because we call it in fixed update, it should be fixed time.delta time. Before we do that, though, I'm actually going to change this to regular update. And I'm changing it from update because I no longer want it to run in fixed update. I want it to run on every frame. Part of this being that I want the input to be fluid. And second part of this being that fixed update has a lot of things that it does every frame. So if we're not actually using physics, we should not do it in fixed update. Even though technically it costs more power to run it every frame, it costs less time latency wise to run it in a non-fixed update frame. So we're going to move a paddle, and it's got to be multiplied by the time space that it is. So since it's in update, it's time dot delta time. And you use this whenever you do anything in update, because this is the update frame time since last frame. So we have all of this. So this should be smooth now, and this should work pretty well. So if we hit play, we can go back and see the difference. And the paddle moves a little slow for right now, but you can see where this is going. You'll have all the components, it just might not look very nice by the end of the tutorial. There we go. And it kind of gets it stuck into that straight down pattern. So, like I said, well, for some of that, it might be better to, and this is inverted, which means I screwed up my keys somewhere. Or I'm looking at it from the wrong angle, yep. Now, why is that? So if it falls straight down, it does that, but when it hits the thing, it's weird. That would be player ball if we wanted to look at our player ball physics material. What does he have? Bounce combine maximum. I'm not sure why colliding with another rigid body is causing that effect. But we can just add we can maybe add the physics material to it. So if I hit the radial, the only other physics I have is the ball material. We could try running that. See if that bounces a little bit better. Okay. Yeah. So maybe there might be something to do with playing around with that a little bit. Once we get the speed of the paddle up, it might change that too. So let's go ahead and change that back up to like 5 maybe. Then I'll just see that I can move the thing around a little bit. It's doing a little bit better. It's still a little weird how much friction it takes out on it. Which is maybe another thing we have to look at. So if we go to the ball, right? So player ball, just so I get the physics material. Let's turn its friction down. Let's just get rid of the friction altogether. Change that to minimum. So it uses the minimum friction all the time, uses the maximum bounce all the time, and then I'm gonna go for all the walls and the top. Drag that in. And what I should actually do is do it in the inspector. For some reason, doing it in the hierarchy doesn't have the same effect. So left click, shift click, and any objects that you change in the inspector will change on all of these selected objects. And only the ones that they all share will show up. So also see how that plays, and that'll be the last one we have time for this particular thing. That seems to mostly fix it. Oh yeah, that's a lot better. It still gets, yeah. So it's the angle, so you might do something with the paddle to make that a little bit better. You could do it with mouse. I just showed with the arrow keys, because arrow keys are usually more dependable when you're doing some testing and stuff. But all you would have to do with that in the input actions is materials, assets, player input, input actions, and then we go, or you could have just used the window that was already open. We have the vector 2 and let's add an actions mouse. And you could do the same thing with the mouse in the way that you do a pass-through value, and then you do a vector 2, but instead of the composite, you do one with like one multiplier, with one modifier. That's a 2D vector. I guess you would do it exactly the same. You would just use the path of the mouse. Get like mouse delta or something, I think it is. All right, let's try this again. DELTA. And the delta of the mouse being delta X mouse. I'm not going to go through that whole thing. I'm going to continue with the keyboard, but delta X mouse, I believe, is the one you would use to get the input of left and right. So you would even maybe do delta left mouse. So delta moving the mouse left, delta right mouse moving the mouse right, so that you would fill in up, down, left, right with those ones, being that they only register one direction. You could also do axes, there's a whole bunch of things, but that's what we'll, that's as much as I'm going to cover on input for this. So, we got paddles, we got the ball, we got the brick, We're going to need a brick. So how do we make a brick? Well, if we go back to assets, we have a prefabs. What's in prefabs? Just canvas right now. So what else do we want? We also want prefabs of our ball and player probably, right? So how do we do that? If our transforms are zeroed out, we can do that. That works pretty good. And just click and drag down. Player paddle. This will have transform information on where it's supposed to be when it comes in. So if you instantiate it, sometimes it'll be at this place. So just keep that in mind for later Unity development, not for this tutorial. And we're going to create, we could do, let's actually do that. So cube through top is all of our object, right? So let's right click. And one of my favorite new ones that I've been using a lot is create empty parent. And this will be the field. So your generic field, meaning it contains all the walls and stuff. And then prefab that. Now we're cooking. And why do we cover prefabs now when we're getting to the bricks? Well, when you create a brick, so let's create an empty game object, no, a 3D game object, and we're going to do a cube in the name of bricks. Let's leave it at, let's reset it. Let's reset that. I'm having bad allergy day today, man. Cool. The room is falling apart. Alright, 1 second. And we're back. Okay. So let's name this brick. Brick. And let's go ahead and we'll prefab it now and show you how some of the new tools work in Unity. So before we built all our objects in here and then we dragged them down into the prefabs, this one we made well, we dragged it in just earlier, but what I want to do with that one is now use this left arrow and we'll jump into the prefab view. Anything we change in here does actually apply to the root prefab, which is pretty nice. So if I want to add a component and I want a new script, and I want to just call this the brick script. I'm going to call it breakable brick. BLE, just because it might conflict with something else they named if we just call it brick. And then we go in, and it'll be, oh, we didn't open it on the other one though. So we need to go up to the scripts. Oh, and it does it here? I don't like that. So that's the downfall with that. I guess that's why everybody does it this way. By right clicking, because then you can actually affect where it goes. Unlike if you just create new, it's kind of messy. Just in case. And then we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna carve some of this out. So what is this one gonna need? This one's definitely gonna need some bars. It's definitely gonna need some methods. What kind of methods is it gonna need? We'll put in accessors just for fun. What kind of methods is it gonna need? Well, it's probably gonna need a break method. So that's probably gonna be public, I think. Public void break, and then we go if game object set active. No, nah. Let's go vars. So this will a brick is gonna have health or hits to break. So let's go not that way. Protection, protected, and it's gonna be a type of integer. hits to break. And we're gonna head and serialize that one. If you want a range, you can put a range in there, but I'm not going to. We could put a really dumb one in just so that it's not like over 20. Yeah, let's do that one. Range, parenthesis, 1 by 20. Okay, so why do we want that? Just for designers in case they decide, or mistype anyway. Mistype and put 200 hits in instead of 20. Maybe you do want 200, you can always change that to fit your project preference. Break. So every time break gets hit, it's just going to call, and it's going to do what would it do? It's going to probably decrease this. But what it should actually do is probably set up which would be a protected her hits to break. And why current hits to break? Well, that's just because I don't want to be decrementing this one directly. It's not a great time all the time. You'll usually want to keep this separate, especially as you move on to more complex health systems. So let's hits to break, set that equal to 0 just so it's instantiated. And in methods, let's actually give this guy an on enable. Why an on enable? Because I don't like running things in awake and start. Unless I need to, we could probably run this on awake. This is going to be a... Yeah, we're not doing anything multiplayer, so we can actually do this on awake. And I'm just going to use the autocomplete function for that. Awake. So we use awake, and on awake we set current hits equal to the hits to break, and then break, we could change it so that it's a different amount of hits, or passes in a hit value. We could, let's do that. Let's say a damage. And then from a damage, we just current hits to break minus equal a damage value. Cool. And I could change this a little bit, but I wouldn't because technically the ball should be checking what it's hitting. But public void break is pretty nice here. I have a different system that I'll probably show in other videos, but for this one, this is pretty good. Let's just go ahead to the other thing. So we go player paddle. So the brick has a breakable script. You can put that up to like 10. And then, so we have the health so that it can hit 0, right? So, what happens if current hits to break is less than 0? So it's If it's less than 0, then, well, that means the brick has broken, right? So then, what I'm going to do is protected void break brick break brick. Let me do that. There we go. And we don't care what our damage is because we only care about this. And actually, I might even put this inside here. And in here, I'm just going to put destroy. And we're going to destroy not this, because that would just be the component. We want to destroy the game object we're on. Break brick. And the reason I do the if check inside this method is just preference. I'd prefer to call a method that does something than to do the if check in here and then have this method just to destroy the object. Plus then I can do other procedure type stuff in here. And it's just preference, because break is like take damage, if you think of it that way. So it's taking damage, it's losing from the health by what was passed in, and then we check if we broke. And we do that every time to make sure that we don't have a negative health. And then if we wanted to add animation and stuff in here, we could. We'd have the option to add flare before destroy. Because once you destroy this game object, nobody else will be able to reference it either. And if you put it after here, it's too late for execution. There are some options, like you can add a delay in here with float t, which is how many seconds it's supposed to wait to destroy. We're not going to use that for this type of game, but if you wanted to execute certain things before, then you could delay it, but it's better practice just to do the things and then destroy the object. Even do the delay and have the delay destroy in a separate coroutine or something. There's just better ways, more preferable ways to do it if you're going to do something like that. So if we go box collider, breakable brick, hits to break, let's pull that up to 10. And that should be pretty good. Now we created that, and let's go back to scenes and see how that looks. See that in the hierarchy. And where's that brick? There's that brick. And it has hits to break. We don't really make it so we can see the health. And you can see it's not destroying. That's because that damage is never actually being done. So the reason I left it public is I don't actually want to do that in there. I want to go to the ball script, and I want to probably just edit that. So right click, edit script. And it'll take me to where I had it opened. So I'm looking at the ball script, and I'm just like, okay, so all of this looks pretty good. This runs everything. What do I want to do though? I want to add some physics stuff, right? Well, I don't, so I need a fixed update. I have a fixed update, so I need to add my code here, right? Nah, we actually have something that's invoked by Unity across the update frames, the fixed update frames. which is why the speed and velocity was so important to the other objects, because we actually have an on collision. So there's on collision enter, on collision exit, and on collision. We're going to use the enter. And you can see it autocompletes us for collision of a collision. So a collision object, I think that's a struct actually, has information in vector 3s about where, how, and between what objects a collision occurs. This actually refers to the other object you collided with. So, oh, I just remembered I'll show you that when we get back in the inspector. But, so if we go collision dot game object is the game object that collided with. So, and then we can get straight to our game object stuff. So let's do dot get component. Get component being of type be brick, breakable brick. And I'm just going to remove that part. I didn't want that. Let's just make brick, and then let's just store it in a variable. So breakable brick bb is equal to collision game object get component breakable brick. So now that we have that saved, if bb not equal null, it's a great way to do that because this can return null if there's no breakable brick on there. So meaning not null means it has a reference, which is pretty much the only way you can check if you have a viable reference for game objects. So bb dot break parameters of, what is it? Let's add something here. So because then you could add different kinds of balls that do different amounts of damage. And let's throw it up here in our variables. I do want to serialize it. I want it protected. I could do private, but that's going to be of type a float. Nope, subtype integer. It probably wouldn't give me any problems if I threw in a float, but I'm not. It's not a good idea to be mixing your data types anyway. Damage equals 1, and save it as 1 default. So there, that should all be set up. So on collision, it should get from the collision struct a brick breaker class from the game object that's associated with that collision and do break damage. The if check, making sure when it hits our paddle or the wall or the floor that it doesn't fail. So our player paddle ball script. So this should be good. Let's try and see what that looks like. So now as we hit play, it should collide until a point where it runs out of hits, which it does. So now we have a brick that breaks, we have a paddle, we have the stage. We still have to do some adjustments on this object here, but for the most part that's working. So let's go ahead and create our round manager, which doesn't look like we've done one yet. Okay. So, don't want to prefab these. We can only kind of prefab it. We can't fully prefab because every stage is going to be different is the idea. So let's go ahead and think about that for a minute. So what would I want to do? I'd probably want to start, I won't want to start with a prefab. I probably want to start with an object. I want to start with an empty object because it doesn't have to be visible. I want to reset its transform because it makes me paranoid. And I want to move it to call this round manager. And this is where I'm starting to bleed a bit from some of these projects are starting to bleed together a little bit. We did a game manager, but not a round manager. Okay, that's okay. I'm gonna create a folder just to help me because I don't like having too many things in here. I'm just gonna call this management. M-A-N-A management. And I'm gonna throw the game manager in it. And I'm also gonna go in there and create my round manager script. So create C# round. So round manager. And this is going to be a mono behavior that just goes on top there. And let's just so double click, cool. And then let's double click and look at this. So I just want to review the other one here. So we have private stat, game manager instance, private float, player score. Game manager instance, if instance equal null, game object, all of this. Okay. The instance is how we're going to reference the game manager. Player score equals 0. Public static game manager instance being how we're going to call in, since this is the public one, and it gets it, and if that instance is equal null, we create a game object in the scene named game manager. The instance is equal to the added component of game manager to game manager object, and we do not destroy on load of this game object. Meaning, and then we return instance. So that's how we get our reference to check our player score. So I'm going to, so there's going to be two things that need to happen in this game manager still. There's going to need to be a reset game manager, right? So there's a reset score. So public, because somebody else is going to have to call it. Reset score. Reset score. Player score. Just copy paste. Equals 0. Great. And then I think that's it for right now. We probably need Ah, that should be good. Reset score. So I was thinking of doing an awake, but I think I just need the reset score one. I don't think I need an awake method in that one. So round manager, what does round manager need to do? Well, it's actually going to use a lot of the same things. And I'm just going to copy paste so that it goes, a little faster and a little more readable. So we're not going to need the static part. We're not going to need player. We're not going to need instance. Won't need player score. And it'll be similar to this, but we're going to do it a little bit different. So we're going to jump straight to methods. And we're just going to use a couple different ones. So this is the one time I am going to do awake. Reason being, I don't want it to see P in the same round as another round manager. So in awake, we're going to store an array of game objects. So game object array GOS is equal to game object find objects of type game objects. And if GOS is equal to null, is not null. Now I want to see if it's. I want to check its length. Dot length is equal to, is not greater than 0, which is not quite what I got there. There. It's not greater than 0, which is also wrong. It's not greater than 1. So if there's not more than one object in that find objects of type, we do nothing. So if it is greater than 1, destroy this object. Because we just want to make sure there's only one of these objects in the scene. Lowercase game object, because we just want the game object we're on to be destroyed if there's another one in the scene. Beautiful, right? Very easy. A little bit simpler than that game manager we made. So, round manager also needs I think it'll need a array of protected array of game objects. Well, game objects are breakable bricks. Breakable bricks array that is serialized. So serialized field breakable brick array is equal to. Don't need to equal it to anything. Just need it declared. And then we also need a method to remove brick from. Whoops, is that not quite right? Breakable brick. I need a name of the bricks. Perfect. So breakable bricks and game object. Oh, that would be interesting. Okay. So breakable bricks, game object, GOS, find object type, that works. Breakable bricks. So we need to remove brick. Remove brick. That needs to be a public as well. Public remove brick. And we're just going through some basic tools right now. There's better ways to do a lot of this next part that I'm going to do. And you should probably learn what those are, but right now, this will finish up the most of the game loop. So we'll do it this way. Remove brick. Protected, void, end, round. And what do we want to do for end round? We'll figure that out after we remove the brick. So when we remove a brick, basically we just want to go to bricks. So if bricks dot length is greater than 0, greater than 0, then we want to remove, right? So we want to remove a brick, and we're going to need a reference to remove brick, right? You're going to need a breakable brick. Breakable brick. And with that breakable brick, we're just going to call that a BB as well. So breakable brick, if the brick's length is greater than 0, then we want to remove that brick. So the things becomes, I know I can serialize this. Can I serialize a list? List of type breakable brick. Let's see how this looks in the inspector. I'm just going to comment this out. Control-Shift/Control-S, just to make sure we're moving in the right direction. And round manager, bricks is still serialized. So good. And then we'll go back. Just wanted to check that for certain, then walk it back, because I saved and pushed and reloaded, right? Yep. Okay. So if bricks length, and then we just want to remove, so bricks dot remove BB, and then this is count, I think. Cool. And then also if it's equal to or less than 0, something like that. There we go. And then there's no BB object. Then I'm just gonna enable a canvas. So I want to create a variable for my canvas that's serialized. Serialized field, protected And I'm gonna go game objects. I've tried using the canvas object before and it's just not usable very well. So we're gonna do a canvas. So scene canvas. And then end round. So we go bricks.count. And then we're gonna canvas. Did I screw that up? Or called it canvas scene, huh? That's fine. Canvas scene dot and it's set active because we're setting the activity of the object and we're setting it equal to true. So this will make the canvas true so that we can click on it. And active. So now we need to make one more decision. We need to put that in remove brick. So that, because we need something we can call from somewhere else. So when a breakable brick asks a round manager to remove it from its list, then it will remove it and check if the round is ended. So now that we have all of this, what do we want to do with that? What we would want to do is go and we can go and test that and see if it turns the right thing on. So round manager, and then this is canvas. So select round manager and move canvas into there. And then we can play. Well, it's gonna bring up the canvas right away because, or not at all because it won't run. Next thing we have to do is we have to add a brick to it. We have to add this brick to it. And with that brick in there, we're getting pretty close to 3/4 through. Maybe I'll run it a bit long tonight, see if I can just get it done. Brick break. We're doing a brick breakable. So then in the brick, I need to go edit its brick scripts. So if we edit the brick scripts, brick break, well, there's a simple piece of code we can put in here that'll allow us to get our round manager. So you remember find objects, find objects, object of type, find objects of type. Probably went faster, type that. And the object we're looking for is the type round manager. Round manager dot round manager public void remove brick. Did I spell something wrong or start typing something wrong? It's probably the objects part because it's an array. That's not a singular object, so it needs to be a singular object. Dot remove brick with parameter of this. meaning we find an object of round manager, and of that we remove this brick from it, from its list. So with that, we should be able to pop back over to Unity, hit a play button, and we go load, load, load. And it did indeed come up, but we'll play that again. So you'll see it hit once or twice. Does it eliminate in one hit? That's what's happening. Nope, it's I put it in the wrong spot. It's not on break brick because it's not when I'm looking to do that. It's on, because this runs every time, it needs to be in the flare section. There we go. Because only if its health is 0, not just if this thing is called. So we go back to here, and then we can play. And then we go bounce. It really, what's different now? Object not an instance of an object. Null reference. Let's just find that. Null reference object not instance. Remove this brick. This breakable brick object. Okay, so it's referencing. Sometimes references of classes or objects don't necessarily work. And it could also be my types might have been mixed up. Because it takes in a brick and it removes it. But these are game objects. So let's make, let's not do that. Let's do BB game object. Okay, no, so the whole thing wasn't breakable bricks. Game object is the canvas scene. Breakable bricks, BB, break bricks, remove. I know one that would be really bad. That would work. Which would be to check every time instead of by how many there are. Yeah, that doesn't, because if that's not removing, then so remove should execute before. That was less than, but that never happens. Do equal, but it doesn't matter. That's the other direction. Remove the brick. Come on. Breakable brick, protected hits brick. Okay, I am going to do the dumb fix, which is to comment this out, go to round manager, and instead of doing all of this removal crap, we're just going to run end round. And if bricks.count, so it's not going to be bricks.count, it's going to be, we're still getting, no, it's going to be length. So we're going to use find objects of type I can't spell. Can't remember this. If my life depended on it. Find objects of type being the breakable brick and if that was the length was less than or equal to 0, then our canvas.setActive is true. So then this would work. This is no longer necessary. And then we can go back to Unity. And then we should be able to pull that open. Come on. Don't need all night to think. There we go. Brick. And there we go. So if we hit play, now we should see the canvas pop up when it breaks. What is not set to an instance of an object? Did it not? It didn't save. Come on. Play. And that didn't work. Because the brick didn't destroy. Okay. This is why you make everything execution independent, which is why we would use the observer pattern here instead of trying to make this happen. Because trying to make this happen also would have helped if this is in here. So this is supposed to go in here. It's gonna be we can just use that there. So we re-enable this find object and we're still using the same remove brick. We just changed how remove brick works. Remove brick. No, I think it actually has to be greater than 1 though. Because if you think about it, that brick doesn't destroy until after this is run. So if it's 1 or less, then it has to do that. And we could move this to update too and just remove all of the brick calling. That's just very unperformant. But it is what I'm doing next if this doesn't run. Because we need to get the score running tonight too, still. Because once the score is running, we don't have to worry about it. Are you serious, man? Find object of type round manager dot remove brick this. Well, that was it. Kill this line. We're just gonna do it very dumb. So when the brick breaks, it's only going to destroy itself. We're going to round manager. We're going to open a new method. It's going to be really stupid to do, but perfect is the enemy of done, and we need to be done with this section. It's taken over 10 minutes. Let's just go. So we just need end round. End round. end round, parenthesis, I don't know what that autocomplete was all about. We're not going to do this, we're just going to delete that altogether. End round, you can set that to 0 because we're checking every frame now. Then let's go back. But it didn't bring up the canvas. So why didn't you bring up the canvas? Where we have this canvas scene. Private void update, end round. End round being that if find objects of type breakable brick dot length is ever less than or equal to 0, canvas scene dot set active equals true. Does round manager not have, was that set somewhere? That's set. Set active true end round. This is a case where I might have mistyped something and it'll probably take me 5 hours plus to figure out where that is, so we're gonna ignore this. The idea is you need to, yeah. Dot length. What if 1? What if it is less than 1? Let's go to that play. Still nothing. If find objects of length breakable brick. Oh, this is insanity. Because there's no way it can be. There's no way this can't be true at some point. Because it's destroyed, so I can't find the object, right? That's insane. One parenthesis, go down, deliberate parenthesis. Okay, it worked. De debug dot log find objects of type breakable brick length. It doesn't debug, which means it never gets called, but it's in update. How can you not get? How does that work? That means that it wasn't the instance issue, was it? Because round manager's right here. Breakable brick is right there. So we play it, and brick is destroyed, which means at this point, and no, it's not. I don't understand how that can be possible. Alright, well, it's time to give up on this altogether. We're gonna just leave that, and I'll post a video if I get it figured out what the heck was wrong, or if I have to actually show a pattern to get it to even work in Unity anymore. Because private void update end round weird. It's like this isn't even getting called. Hmm. Oh well. Can't do much about it. So let's go to the game manager. Let's create an ad score. So we create an ad score method. This brings in a points. So it's going to be a, what do we call this score? Score is in float. So float a score, and it is player score equal to plus equal to a score. Okay, so player score plus equal a score doesn't exist. What? The name player score does not exist in the current context. I've just misspelled something and we're not gonna try and spell today. Player score. There you go. So player score plus equals a score. So this increments the score. And then reset score is going to be added to the other button. But we can't get it through the inspector. Which means the canvas needs it, which means that that button could get it that way, but we can't use static reference. Okay. Um, so we might put reset button. Okay, actually, I think I'm just gonna call it there. I'm gonna try and get some extra notes or something and finish up on what is it? Thursday or I'll try and finish it up on my spare time, I guess. I'll try and get it Saturday maybe. Yeah, I guess Saturday won't be an art stream. I gotta get this finished. So there'll be a short video into this playlist, and we'll try and finish up some extra stuff and some of the last bits, and then try and do some art stuff for it maybe. None of these errors make sense. You got the round manager who running end around every frame even can't debug a statement. So it doesn't make any sense. There has to be something like that's weird. And your breakable brick, the brick is working fine. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to. It's destroying itself after an amount of time. There's no errors. So yeah, maybe it's just going to be a short video, or we'll visit it on Saturday. I don't think it's not gonna happen tonight. So we'll look at that later. Yeah. Okay. Canvas nav is gonna be fine. All of that's gonna be fine. We might have to inherit from Canvas nav and create a canvas that's specifically for the opening part, because we can reset score in here. So that would be game manager dot, and game manager is going to be instance, so we get an instance of the object, and then we go dot add, this is going to be reset score, then load next scene. Won't reset the score, just load next scene. Yeah, that's weird. Round end canvas scene. Before we end, let's just make sure to copy this and paste it in here. Then let's do that and play it. We still have no debug statements. This is insane. There used to be an odd error like that with other media types. The heck? Couldn't be a Windows 11 thing, could it? Alright, yeah. Why? That makes no sense, and this is why you should write your own C# observer patterns, because these apparently update isn't even running for the round manager. Nobody's other update frame is weird, so I guess that's it. Well, where are we at? We got bricks at break. I don't remember how strike through works, so we're gonna highlight them. Oh, actually, this is that was a Google problem I had. Strike throughs here. Score rules. So we'll be setting that up. We won't be doing this at all. That can be a challenge if you want to try and create that in the game. Round tracker, um, still have to fix that. Still have to fix that. That one's done, so it is only one object. Reset to 0 based on scene number. We're not going to do that. We're going to do that a different way. So there's that. We're not going to use the mouse anymore. We're just going to keep with the arrow panels for the tutorial anyway. I showed how you can change your input, so you can go ahead and do that if you prefer the mouse. Ball bouncing, ball bounce is fine. Paddle moves, so that's done. So it's just some cleanup with, we're just going to add the rules, a simple scoring to it. Then we're going to track blocks in scene, enable canvas when all blocks are destroyed. Reset to 0 based on scene number. Okay. Alright, so if you liked or find these videos helpful, go ahead and remember to like and subscribe and comment any questions or anything that you have on subjects that we have here, and then remember to relax. So next video will be, or next stream will be on Thursday, and we will be doing Blender. So some basic 3D Blender, doing some modeling, mostly ramps and some scenic type things. So non-organic objects and non-animated objects. Real starting point, and we'll probably add some rigging in future ones, but this one will just be um, three-dimensional objects and making those, which you can make some really good games with not even using organic shapes. Like Battletops didn't use any organic shapes, it was all uh, metallic shapes and signs and things like that. So, and the one racer we're making, we're not using any organic shapes. It's a robot, and we make its wheels turn. So, uh, don't forget that not everything has to be rigged. You can still make some really nice things without rigging everything. And then Saturday, I'll probably revisit this with a little bit of cleanup type stuff. Maybe just going over if I have time in the meantime to go back and fix those things. Then it'll be a real quick cleanup session, and then some art type things for it. Because there's a few things that would be really fun to make and just help you decorate it, which would be kind of cool. So until then, so until Thursday. We'll see you Thursday at 6 for Blender.